never ceased to amaze me in the fact that you've never done anything badly ever in your life.
I don't know that that's true. I wasn't great at sports.
You're a dancer.
Oh, that's true.
Like, there's literally nothing you can't do. Like, physically, mentally, emotionally,
Well, emotionally, I don't know about that one.
If it makes you feel better, I was recently sitting in a room full of clinical psychologists who all basically said BPD is just diagnosing women with
This
emotions.
is going to sound very strange. I'm so glad women are finally being able to get diagnosed with ADHD and autism. Obviously, historically, those parameters have been built around men. I have been diagnosed with so many things that at this point, I'm like, I think it's just all of them besides schizophrenia, and we're just going to be okay with
The more I
that.
spend time working with clinical psychologists, the more I'm actually somewhat like diagnoses are all fake pilled because really, who are we to say what's normal?
I think that's why some of the discourse around self-diagnosing, like, yes, I do think there's some level of it that is harmful, but also in the same way that I think like choosing the words that make you feel the best about your gender and sexuality is useful, I also feel the same way about mental health in a lot of regards, because who am I to say what your autism looks like?
I'm the same way. I think the issue is for a lot of people, they use these labels as ways to create an identity for themselves because they're like, oh, like I've always wanted to understand why I am this way. It's because I'm autistic, and now autism is my personality. It's a similar thing, right? When people come out, they tend to like lean really hard into queerness in a way that they usually don't after spending time in queer circles. I'm everything and nothing, baby. I contain multitudes.
What was the thing that I texted you? I'm queer in the gender sense, the sexuality sense, and then mental health wise, I'm queer in the boxcar children way where something's just a little bit wrong. And with that, welcome to Informed Attraction, a podcast about how Twitter is the bad place, hosted by two absolute monsters. I'm Mackenna Goodrich.
I'm Dr. Aubrey Hoffer.
And today we are going to wrap our discussion of why are there so many sexy rabbits talking about Lola Bunny, her creation, her debut, and her controversial redesign. But first, Aubrey, I have some things from the last two episodes I would like to get into.
Please tell me.
Okay, so after you showed me the lovely piece of art at the end of the last episode, the Zootopia comic that was super wholesome and didn't give me nightmares at all.
The abortion comic.
I remembered, and I wish I would have brought up when we were recording. Do you know who Mary Toft is?
Oh, is that the lady who claimed that she could give birth to bunnies?
Yes.
Yeah!
I am haunted by this woman. My friend Sarah Grouster wrote a one-woman show about sort of riffing on the Mary Toft thing. And so I just want to make sure our audience knows there was this woman. Her name is Mary Toft. She was alive in the 18th century, and she tricked doctors into believing she had given birth to rabbits. And she was imprisoned for fraud when they found out she lied.
That's a girl boss. And if Mary Toft was alive in 2025, she would be friends with Charlie XCX.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's got to be some level of gumption where you're like, let me just shove some dead rabbits right up my pussy and then shove them out of there.
I don't know if it was that.
How else did they come out?
No, 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 no. I'm trying to remember if she actually. Okay, this is gonna sound weird because she just like told them that she had given birth to animal parts.
No, I swear that she like did demonstrations.
Oh yeah, a doctor came and collected them.
Yeah.
Apparently, they were not disappointed. Arriving on 15 November, they were taken by Howard to see Toft, who within hours delivered a rabbit torso.
Yeah.
What did she want?
The fame,
Yeah, I
the
guess.
money, the lasting presence on Wikipedia. I mean, this was like what, the 1750s? She's just like me for real. Mary Toft, she should have been at the club.
You know what? Good for her. It does say the case of Mary Toft was used to help move knowledge of reproduction and childbirth into a more rational age. What we can say is this woman being like, yeah, I gave birth to rabbits because I saw some bunnies and seeing those bunnies made me pregnant with rabbits. Everyone finding out that that was fake made people be like, hey, maybe we should think more critically about how birth happens.
There is a frightening amount of medical history until very recently where people really just thought, if I look at a sick person, I will become sick, or if I look at something evil, I will become evil.
There's also a frightening amount of medical history around women where men were like, "Well, I understand how that works."
We still know nothing about women's bodies.
The history of IUDs gives me both the heebies and the jeebies.
You know what's so interesting when you have an IUD is that they put it in and then they're like, make sure every now and then you check and see if you can feel the strings. I've never been able to feel the strings ever. And every time I go to the OBGYN, I'm like, I've never felt these strings. And they're like, nah, it's fine. And they basically are like, the strings are probably just like wrapped around your cervix and it's fine if you don't feel them. And then they reach up there and they're like, yep, feels fine. And I'm like, what do you feel that I can't?
Or maybe they're lying to you and they're gaslighting you and they don't want to tell you that your IUD has traveled up to your brain and is living in your brain as an RFK brainworm.
That should be my new conservative grift is I should say that I'm anti-birth control because my IUD traveled up to my brain and made me woke.
I love that. Speaking of woke people, this is not a good transition. We were talking recently with some of our friends after we had recorded our Zootopia episode about Judy Hop. And two of our friends, without missing a beat, were like, well, it's because she has a fat ass.
Insane take because that's literally just a bunny.
Like, she doesn't even have the, like, Mrs. Incredibles. I get it. She's got, like, big rabbit thighs because she's a fucking rabbit. Like, she doesn't have a fat ass.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how quickly our group chat was like, no, no, she does have a fat ass. Because you and I were both like, yeah, that's a little bunny. That's kind of weird that people want to fuck it. And then all of our friends were like, I'd fuck it. I'm the one who wants to fuck a lot of things. And I'm like, that's a bunny. That's literally just a bunny. I'm not trying to yuck your yum. It's not my yum.
I do have to eat a little bit of crow about my point that she looks really animal-like because I do start the very first episode of this podcast by going, well, obviously Spirit the horse is a sexy horse when he does just look like a horse. I will say, according to our friend Gray, Judy Hopps is very important in the trans furry community, and we love the trans furries, but also we have questions about the Judy Hopps of it all.
Yeah, look, trans furries, we have common ground. We both agree that the Robin Hood fox is sexy. Judy Hopps is where I draw the line a little bit. And that's for me. You can still have Judy Hopps.
The only place I draw the line with furries is I've lived in two places where there's been a furry convention happening at the same time, and in both times, it has been a nightmare for that hotel. So furries stop being nightmares at hotels.
What conventions have you been to? Because I have been to a few anime conventions when I was a little otaku in my youth, and I've been to Phoenix Comic Con once, which is just the same vibe.
I've been to 0. I've never been to, like, a convention. One day you and I will go to New York Comic Con and we can dress as Lola Bunny, as a Playboy bunny, and it'll all come together.
Well, I think really, if you and I were gonna do a cosplay together, we gotta be Kermit and Miss Piggy. There's
Yeah, you're
there's
right.
nothing else that matches the energy more.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Well, speaking of Lola Bunny, let's start talking about her. There's a lot to get into. Aubrey, before we started all of this, what did you know about Lola Bunny?
I remember seeing Lola Bunny in Space Jam, and I really feel like when she's introduced, they do that typical trope where she's walking slowly and the camera pans up her body, and it's like the bow, 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 and it's like sexy. I do feel like I remember that. And there's like a new iteration of Looney Tunes that is really out of pocket and hilarious that I think she's a part of. And I think they do something different with that where either she's simping for Bugs or Bugs is simping for her, but they're not like lovey-dovey in a relationship. But I've always been a fan of Lola Bunny. I thought she was really like the woman in Looney Tunes because there's really no female characters in Looney Tunes, and I really liked her for that.
Aubrey, so much of this we're going to discuss, and so much of it is true. So, Lola Bunny first appeared in Space Jam in 1996. Yes, she was created for Space Jam. There was no Lola Bunny before Space Jam. That was her first appearance. She is typically depicted as Bugs' girlfriend slash love interest throughout her appearances in the canon. We'll get into that Bugs has had some interesting relationships pre Lola. So, how do we get to Lola Bunny? Looney Tunes is an American media franchise by Warner Bros. That began as a series of animated shorts from 1930 to 1969 alongside its spin-off Merry Melodies. The difference between the two is that basically Looney Tunes was about the characters and Merry Melodies was about promoting Warner Bros. Music catalog. But over time, the Looney Tunes characters started appearing in Merry Melodies and they eventually blurred into one property.
Okay.
So the series introduced iconic characters like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig. It was initially produced by Leon Schlesinger with animators Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising. The franchise later came under Warner Bros. Cartoons, and Looney Tunes gained prominence with directors like Tex Avery and Chuck Jones and voice actor Mel Blanc, evolving into a beloved part of American animation history. Aubrey, do you have a favorite Looney Tunes character?
I'm quite partial to Daffy Duck.
I love Daffy Duck. I will talk more about Daffy Duck later.
I've realized that my probably furry niche is I'm pretty partial to duck-based characters. I really like Daffy Duck. I have a bizarre attraction to Nightwing Duck.
Not bizarre.
Not bizarre. He is just hot. Yeah, I really fuck with DuckTales, especially the new version of DuckTales, which I watched, and then they had like a two-parter that had a Nightwing Duck spin-off kind of thing, and I watched all of that, got very obsessed with the fan community for about 2 weeks straight, and it was all I could think about. So I do think that if I have a furry niche, it is gonna be for the ducks.
Do you know anything about duck genitals?
I do, and I don't want to think about it.
For those who don't know, ducks have corkscrew shaped penises and they're also really, really long.
Like, longer than you would think.
Much, much longer. Like they're like sort of flexible too. And it was like basically so that they could be more sexually competitive. Back to Looney Tunes. As Aubrey mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of female Looney Tunes characters, and there weren't back then, and there still aren't now.
And I think all the ones that are there are basically just girl versions of the boy characters, right? Like Porky Pig has Petunia Pig or whatever.
There are some other ones. There are some, like, older characters. There's, like, a witch and the old lady. For the most part, you are correct.
Wait, McKenna, who's your favorite Looney Tune?
Oh, I love Daffy Duck too, much like I like Tom and Jerry. I really like the Sylvester and Tweety dynamic.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, and I also love Marvin the Martian.
Ooh, he should get his own episode. He's cute.
The original origins of this, like, pretty lady bunny Looney Tunes character come with Honey Bunny in 1953. This is where, I mean, Bugs has some, like, interesting dating history. So Honey Bunny was introduced as Bugs's cousin in 1953, and then in 1966, they reused the exact same name for his girlfriend, and I just have to say that's very suspicious behavior, Mr. Bunny. Very suspicious.
We don't have enough names. The only way is that we must reuse this character and her name. It's been 9 years. No one's going to remember.
Or Bugs is kissing his cousin.
Well, some cousins can be hot.
Honey Bunny was originally a tan bunny and she had bangs. They look pretty insane. But in the 1990s, she was redesigned to be gray and look more like Bugs. So once again, he is not beating the kissing cousin allegations. Aubrey, if you'd like to look, I have linked Honey Bunny's original design from the 1950s.
Honey Bunny, she looks like a little tan bunny. She's got, it looks like in the 2000s, do you remember when everyone would do the same hairstyle where they would put their hair back and do the little bump it?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, she's got that going. And then she's got some turquoise eyeshadow. I think that she's looking cute. She's obviously nothing compared to Lola Bunny.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, they redesigned her in the 1990s and she basically looked like Bugs with a bow. Like literally, it's Bugs with a hair bow. For Space Jam, they thought Honey Bunny looked too similar to Bugs. I guess we finally turned against incest in 1996, so they decided to make a new love interest for Bugs for Space Jam. The first redesign was Lola Rabbit. Two big problems with that. Number one, rabbits are boys. Number two, the design was rejected by McDonald's because she looked too young to be Bugs's girlfriend, and so they didn't want to sell a toy of her. Aubrey, I also have a link to Lola Rabbit's original design if you'd like to take a look at her.
She does look like she is 9 years old. She literally just looks like Bugs Bunny if Bugs Bunny was a lesbian child.
She does look like some non-binary people's dream is what I will say. Is like this could be gender inspo for some non-binary folks. Look up Lola Rabbit.
Yeah, like Lola Rabbit looks like they live in Bushwick and are named Almond.
Yes, I agree with you entirely. So, because of this rejection from McDonald's, because they wanted to sell toys, they sparked the redesign to Lola Bunny. And that's when we get Lola Bunny in Space Jam. For those who have not seen Space Jam, a movie Aubrey and I both love, Space Jam was in 1996 and it follows NBA star Michael Jordan as he's recruited by the Looney Tunes to help them win a basketball game against the Monstars. Amusement park Moron Mountain is in decline. Its proprietor, Mr. Swackhammer, learns of the Looney Tunes from the Nerdlucks, his quintet of alien minions. The Nerdlucks threaten to enslave the Looney Tunes as amusement park attractions, and the Tunes challenge them to a basketball game because the Nerdlucks are teeny tiny. The Nerdlucks steal the talents of a bunch of NBA players and become the Monstars. Bugs Bunny recruits Michael Jordan and he trains the team. Through a combination of his skills and the Looney Tunes' wacky antics, they manage to win the game. And in the end, Michael helps the NBA players regain their talents and he returns to professional basketball himself. I didn't mention, but this movie starts with when the real life thing where Michael Jordan played baseball for a while. And by the end, he's like back to basketball, which also happened in real life.
Yeah, there was a weird blurring of reality with Space Jam where, as a child, because people had told me that Michael Jordan actually did play baseball, I sort of thought that the events of Space Jam were basically canon to real life, where he had some shit happen with the Looney Tunes and that pushed him to go back into basketball. And I was very confused.
It's a documentary. Charles Barkley's basketball powers were stolen by a bunch of aliens from space.
I think also just the real people with cartoons and me being like 6, I was like, this is real shit going on right now. Where are the cartoons in my life?
We're not worthy of the magic. We're not Michael Jordan. We don't get to have cartoons in our lives, but he does. He does in real life.
I don't remember if Michael Jordan was good at acting or not.
I don't either. I can tell you that I do remember that LeBron James was good at acting. We'll get to the second Space Jam, and I do think LeBron James is a good actor. We're going to talk about Lola's entrance. Aubrey, I would love for us to watch this, but we're both going to click on the link together and watch the entrance together.
Okay, I do remember this. This could have been pivotal to my sexual orientation as a child.
I thought I remembered this. I did not remember it as well as I thought I did.
All right, everyone's playing basketball. It's pure chaos.
Yeah, I wrote practice is going terribly because it's a bunch of Looney Tunes men and Michael Jordan. Oh my god, he looks so young.
Oh my god. I thought he was so old when I was a kid. The animation in this is incredible.
Oh, I do love the Wile E. Coyote too. Sexy music. Lola's here.
Oh my god. Dude, she is fucking stunting on Bugs Bunny. She does have some skills, Michael. It's that thing where media is like, I'm a sexy woman, but I'm more than that. I can do things while I'm sexy.
Yeah, so basically what happens is Lola enters and there's all this sexy music. And then Bugs calls her doll and she gets mad and challenges him to a game of one-on-one. Tweety Bird goes, "Ooh, she's hot." And then Lola dunks on Bugs and her bra strap falls down because, of course, this bunny is wearing a crop top slash sports bra. And of course, her bra seductively falls down while she's dunking. Also, she blows her ears out of her eyes. And then Bugs literally goes stiff as a board. And then as she exits, every man, chicken, cat, and rabbit in the room is mesmerized by her, besides Michael Jordan.
It probably would have been worse if Michael Jordan was also aroused.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I want to watch her introduction into the new Space Jam because I'm so curious. Society is so different now.
Oh, and we sure will. But I also, speaking of this, the first Space Jam, we have a few more clips. Okay, so the other thing is that like Lola Bunny actually isn't in a ton of this movie, so we're almost gonna watch every single scene that she's in.
I just remember her being so pivotal.
It's because she's pivotal in our memory because she is what made us gay.
I mean, she is. She was my idea of what a woman should be like.
But let's watch her entrance into the game, which is the next link that I have.
Oh my god. A scintillating 3'2".
Wolf whistling, obviously. They're showing her in silhouette. Every man in the audience is jizzing their jorts.
Okay, why is she in a crop top and no one else is?
What a great question, Aubrey, because then the next thing you see is Daffy Duck, and he's in a full uniform,
Yeah.
and for some reason, she is in, like, a pornographically small uniform. It doesn't make any sense. It would what's happening? I noticed that that doesn't exist in sports, like, for the longest time, women's beach volleyball outfits were bikinis and men's were not, they were fully clothed. That has changed recently, but
Are the men are in bikinis?
yes, they now everyone plays in a bikini.
Yay! That's the world I wanna live in.
And it's the same thing with, gymnastics, but this is a children's movie, and it is interesting to me that the choice was made to put her in, like, the tiniest, littlest outfit possible.
Yeah, it really just shows that the objectification of women has been commonplace for so long. I think that the intent was that this would be empowering, right? To this idea that there's this woman and she's hot, but she's good at basketball, and everything depends on her because she's so good at basketball. Meanwhile, it's the images of her are still very much catered to her as an object of sexual desire.
Aubrey, it's so funny you say that. Let's watch this last scene. This is sort of the climactic moment with Lola Bunny,
All right, a big monster is gonna get Lola, and then Bugs pushes her out of the way heroically.
and he gets crushed.
Okay, the way she's laying while she's cradling him is so odd.
It's just interesting that, like, it feels like the climax for her character is getting saved by bugs.
Well, yeah, like so in these three scenes, the arc of her character is basically enter an arena where I'm immediately objectified, show my skills, tell this man, fuck you, don't call me doll, and then he sacrifices himself for her, and then she's like, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me, and gives him a big old kiss. And it's like, okay, so I guess her arc as a character was that she needed to learn to accept the love of a man.
Yeah, it's just she was a really underdeveloped character. So, kind of to your point that, like, it was meant to be empowering, I don't think that's true. So, at this point, you might be wondering, why the fuck did they make this rabbit so hot? Feels like a bit of an overcorrection from Honey Bunny and Lola Rabbit, no? So, animation director Tony Cervoni said Lola was originally intended to be more of a tomboy, but the production team feared she would appear too masculine and chose to emphasize her feminine attributes instead. So I think what happened was they were like, well, we don't want people to think she's a boy. So we're going to make her the sexiest bunny of all time. And that literally all they were trying to do was make her as capital G gender as possible. I do not think she was meant to be an empowering character. She was meant to be Bugs's girlfriend. She was written to be Bugs's girlfriend. And they made her so sexy so that there was no confusing her with a boy bunny.
Well, and that's to increase the marketability, right? To say this is this character who has a very specific design, is different from the rest of the Looney Tunes. I do think that it's the intent is to market it to girls because don't all girls like pretty things?
Maybe. I also think that it is still pretty male gazy to be like, Bugs has a hot girlfriend. Part of why I think that is based on the reaction in the 2020s about her redesign. There were women who were upset. It was not mostly women who were upset.
No, it's all the guys who were straight jorking it to Lola Bunny in the first Space Jam, and they were so excited that they could jork it to a Lola Bunny voiced by Zendaya, and then they didn't feel like they could jork it to a Lola Bunny voiced by Zendaya.
Yeah, and I think that also, like, the original redesign has a lot to do with just this legacy of, like, the way that you differentiate between a female and male character is by making the female character curvy and sexy. I've linked 2 examples, which is Stitch versus his counterpart in the Lilo and Stitch TV show Angel, where she's like sexy girl Stitch. She's also evil, which is like she's supposed to be like cute to distract you from the fact that she was evil.
I loved this character. I actually loved the Lilo and Stitch TV series. I thought it was very fun. But yeah, her character is just Stitch but pink. And then she has these pink tendrils that hang behind her and effectively serve as like hair or pigtails that just make her so boom chicka boom chicka.
She also has like a chest and a waist.
Yeah, because you need to. Where are the nipples though?
They're nipless.
Nipless.
Because Stitch is nipless.
Yeah.
They don't have nipples.
Then how do they feed their young?
They don't. Aren't they born of, like, egg?
No, I think they're created in a lab by Jumba. So I think that they're not meant to reproduce.
And the other example I have linked is the deers in open season. The boy deer versus the girl deer in open season is egregious.
Yeah, so the boy deer is arguably looks less like a deer, I think,
Yes.
and is very cartoony, has one big antler, has weird loppy teeth, and then the female has the smallest little face that could possibly fit on a tiny head.
Just, like, skinty, smooth, all of that. Yassified, literally like a yassified version of the boy deer.
Well, it's also fascinating because it looks like the male deer in open season. I think that he stands on 2 legs, or at least it looks
Yes.
like it in the screenshot, and then the female deer stands on 4 legs and is much more
Also correct.
deer looking.
Uh-huh.
So, I don't wanna watch open season porn to know how they manage that one.
And I won't. So Lola made other appearances between the 2 Space Jam movies. Aubrey, you mentioned one of these. So there was the Looney Tunes show, which was on from 2011 to 2013 on Cartoon Network. And this is a huge character change for her. Like you mentioned, she's way more ditzy and scatterbrained, and she is obsessed with bugs. So it's the exact opposite of how it
Okay.
is in Space Jam, where he's like, awooga, awooga, awooga. And she's like, fuck you. He's not like, fuck you to her in the TV show, but she is obsessed with him in the TV show.
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes of this. The show is actually really funny and has a
Yeah,
lot of great comedic moments, but her character, I'm now recalling, is just like obsessed with bugs, wants to be his girlfriend, and he's basically completely apathetic to her. And that's most of the humor in their dynamic is her wanting to be his girlfriend or being like, "Yeah, you're my boyfriend." And he's like, no, I'm not."
which is like a different, like slightly sexist trope of like a woman obsessed with man who could not care less about her. I also think it's important to mention that that's not their dynamic the whole show. So at first, when she first is like, "You're my boyfriend," he's like, okay, I kind of know who you are, whatever." But like throughout the show, they keep hanging out. And while she's still sort of like you're my boyfriend, I love you, Bugs, he like does like her and they are eventually dating in the show and have like a really nice relationship dynamic. I think it's just in a way we haven't necessarily seen that. I mean, granted, this was the second time they were ever in a piece of media, really, but it's just an interesting thing to see her as more of the like chaotic one and him as more of the straight man, because that's not the vibe in the first one at all. So I think the vibe is inverted, but eventually it's not like that he's apathetic to her the whole show. They are eventually like actually dating, and it's very sweet.
Yeah.
In that version of Lola, she is voiced by Kristen Wiig, and they also made her look more like a bunny, and they took her ass away, but they left her tits if you'd like to look, Aubrey, even though you have seen the show.
Yes, she's very cute. I think that this is a really cute design for her still. It is interesting though because in Space Jam, I feel like her character is so like, I'm a woman and I'm hot, but you can't disrespect me. And then the Kristen Wiig Lola Bunny is very much Valley Girl y and ditzy
Yes.
and kind of stupid.
And also absolutely just begging for Bugs to disrespect her.
Yeah.
And then after the Kristen Wiig version, there was another version of Lola in the new Looney Tunes, which was on Boomerang from 2015 to 2020. And I think this redesign is sort of the midpoint between the original Space Jam and the Looney Tunes show. So she still has like curves and everything. She has like that Judy Hopps body.
Ugh. Ugh, she's hideous.
She's not as cute as she is in either of the first 2 versions of her. This art style for Looney Tunes was not my favorite art style in general, is what I'll say. The new Looney Tunes art style was kind of wacko smacko.
This looks so bad. I kind of want to know what the rest of the characters look like, but it looks horrible. Like her proportions are really wonky. So she has like a tiny torso but then really long limbs.
I can just share an image of what the other characters looked like. Yeah, it was just a very different art style in general. And some of the characters look like Bugs looks pretty similar. I think Lola, they like did another like full redesign on.
No, everyone else I actually think looks kind of okay. She looks bad.
That's weird what they did to our girl.
Yeah, it's like a weird, like, kind of 2010s animation style. I don't know what cartoon they were trying to evoke with it. All the characters have this weird little body and long legs thing going on that I
Yeah.
find very off-putting. But Lola Bunny's face they kind of fucked up.
But, like, if there's other images here, I'm seeing another image. There's, like, this image of Bugs, it looks like he doesn't have a nose. Like, there are other yeah, it's just the art style's weird. It was very strange.
It looks really cheap, which is surprising that this went on for 5 years.
Yeah, it started on, I think, Boomerang itself and then ended up on their streaming service, and now you can watch it on Max. Not to, like, tell you to go watch the new Looney Tunes, but if you wanna watch it, it's on
I'm
Max.
alright.
I also just wanted to say that, like, animation is hard, and trying to redesign a beloved brand, I'm sure, is not easy, and so I am very sure that all these animators are very talented animators and designers, but yeah, this aesthetic just wasn't for us, but maybe it was for someone. I'm sure it was for someone. It went on for a long time. So I think importantly, throughout all of this, but especially the original Lola Bunny design, people want to fuck this bunny. There was a subreddit that was Lola Bunny not safe for work, and it did get banned because it was not moderated. So I could not look at any of the posts on it. I could have gone on the Internet Archive, but honestly, I already looked at so much Judy Hopps pornography that I couldn't do it. I didn't need to watch the porn. I didn't need to. Is that okay? Is that okay that I didn't watch it?
I do think that it hurts your journalistic integrity.
Okay, well, sorry that the subreddit got banned, and then I went, "Okay, that's God intervening." In 2020, this website Dating Brew, which seems like it's geared towards, like, comparing dating sites, it named Lola the most attractive cartoon across the world based on global search volume, and it looks like it was updated in 2023 and it was still Lola, but the USA was actually Zelda and not Lola because in the United States, we're all giant nerds.
That's so interesting because like Zelda kind of makes sense because she's the main character in one of the most popular video game franchises of all time. Whereas Lola Bunny is like a side character in two Space Jam movies and a side character in Looney Tunes, which is not that culturally relevant right now.
Yeah, but she's hot as hell. So, Aubrey, if you would like to click on that link, just I wanted you to look at the rest of the list in case you had any other reactions to the top 10.
All right, well, screen grab is Mario, so I hope he's top 3.
It's all girls.
No! All right, so number 1 is Lola Bunny. That's insane. Number 2 is Marge Simpson, which I find very fascinating because Marge with her hair down, yes. Marge with the regular beehive, a little bit weird.
The Beehive does it for me.
3 is Zelda. 4 is Velma from Scooby Doo, which is so fascinating to me because Daphne is the hot one, but everyone has agreed that they want to fuck Velma instead.
It's why the live action Scooby Doo movie, Scooby Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, specifically understood its audience. And they were like, we wrote Daphne for you to want to kiss her, but we all know you want to kiss Velma. So we're going to put Velma in some latex and we're all just going to have a nice time.
Yeah, Velma is definitely my husband's cartoon crush. He did a costume once where he was Fred and a girl he knew was Velma for Halloween before I met him, and I'm still mad about it. 5 is Kim Possible, which tracks. Kim Possible was one of my sexual awakenings. Didn't know if I wanted to be her or be with her. I also think Ron Stoppable is kind of bisexual woman boyfriend goals.
I was a Shigo guy, though, as I think everyone can tell from the Everything About Me.
Obviously. 6 is Princess Peach. This is Daisy Erasure. I do love Daisy, as well as Rosalina. 7 is Jessica Rabbit, who we should add is not a rabbit. 8 is Elsa. I hate that.
There's a lot of Elsa porn.
I know this. 9 is Tinkerbell because we can't get enough of those little blonde bitches, I guess. Tinkerbell and Judy Hopps, I think similarly coded. Once again, just it's the physicality of it. Like she's little. What do you think is going to happen?
That is a kink for so many men. It's why they're scared of me being 5'8".
That scares me. And then 10 is probably going to be the subject of a whole episode for us because it's Lois Griffin.
Love you, Lois. That's my girl. I think just some things that I wanted to note about here. It like breaks down by country as well. So like it says the USA wants to poke Princess Zelda, whatever the fuck that means. And then for about Canada, it says Jessica beats rabbit rival Lola in Canada. And I just have to say, Jessica Rabbit is not a rabbit. She fucks and is married to a rabbit, Roger Rabbit. She is not a rabbit.
She's a rabbit fucker.
So, for those who don't know who Jessica Rabbit is, she is from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. She is a sultry but moral and kind hearted cartoon singer at a Los Angeles supper club called the Ink and Paint Club. And she loves her husband because he makes her laugh, is a better lover than a driver.
You know, one of my celebrity, not even celebrity crushes, but when I was a kid, I thought Bob Hoskins in Who Framed Roger Rabbit was pretty hot.
That makes sense to me about you.
We don't have to unpack that right now.
All to say, Jessica Rabbit is a human toon. She is a human. Animator Richard Williams described her as the ultimate male fantasy drawn by a cartoonist, and I would hope that the ultimate male fantasy is not a rabbit, but if we learned anything from the datingroo.com list, the ultimate male fantasy might be a rabbit.
Judy Hopps didn't even crack top 10.
But Lola Bunny sure did.
That's wild to me. Non-human entities.
Well, and then in the first episode, we had the Edinburgh list that had the Caramel Bunny at number 3.
I want to open up the data files where this was compiled. And I know that it was probably just a Google form, but I want to crunch the numbers on this.
It's based on search data, so it's based on Google searches.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Lola. Chuck Jones, who is one of the Looney Tunes guys, he was an animator, a writer, a director. He helped create a bunch of the characters, including co-creating Bugs himself. And he also created Marvin the Martian, Pepe Le Pew, Wile E. Coyote, and the Roadrunner. He calls Lola in Space Jam a totally worthless character and that she has no future and no personality.
He said, fuck Lola Bunny. We should have kept Lola Rabbit, god damn it.
If this was America's Next Top Model, Chuck Jones would have cut Lola's ass. He also called her a nightmare of fervent fetishist, and I liked that.
Based.
And what I'll say is that the animators did admit to underdeveloping her because she was written into the story late because she started as Honey Bunny and then she was Lola Rabbit and then she was finally Lola Bunny. So they like created Lola Bunny when they were already in production for the 1996 film. Aubrey, any final thoughts on the 90s Lola before we move to the controversy?
I think that I would have treated her better.
I agree. Okay, the controversy. Space Jam: A New Legacy comes out in 2021. It was directed by Malcolm D. Lee. He also directed Girls Trip, The Best Man films and miniseries, Night School, and other films, and he is also a cousin of Spike Lee.
Nice.
Aubrey, have you seen the Space Jam's A New Legacy?
I have not.
Okay, I sure have. LeBron James and his son Dom get trapped in the Warner Bros. Serververse by an AI called AIG, who's played by Don Cheadle. AIG takes Dom prisoner and forces LeBron to assemble a basketball team to win their freedom. LeBron teams up with Bugs Bunny to recruit the Looney Tunes across the serververse. Meanwhile, AIG manipulates Dom into creating a powerful team, the Goon Squad. During the game, AIG abducts LeBron's family and threatens to delete the Looney Tunes from the serververse if they lose. The Goon Squad dominates. LeBron lets the Tunes use their cartoon abilities, rallying the team. Spoiler alert! Bugs Bunny sacrifices himself for the winning play, being deleted. So you think at the end of the game that Bugs Bunny is dead?
Oh my god.
However, in the final scene of the movie, he later regenerates and we see him in the real world. LeBron reunites with Dom and accepts the Looney Tunes into his life.
Is it LeBron James's real son in the movie?
I don't remember. Let's look.
Because I know that he has a son, Bronny, right? Who's like a big deal in basketball, maybe?
Yeah, Bronny is in the NBA and is in fact also on the Lakers with his dad.
No, it's some actor who doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Cedric Joe.
I hope this movie being bad didn't kill that kid's career.
Oh no, I hope not. I mean, he's only 19. He's got time to cook.
I just always fear with kids.
How young was he? This movie came out a couple of years ago, and this actor's only 19 now.
I think they started shooting even before COVID. Yeah, because they started shooting in 2019, so 6 years ago.
Oh my god, yeah. So he was only like 13. Wow, I thought it was like an adult. Like I thought it was like a 20-year-old son as the son in
No, no,
this.
no, like, part of the plot is his kid wants to go to, like, video game camp instead of going to basketball camp, and LeBron is like, "No, you will be a basketball player, me boy." The kid's like, "No, dad, let me play video games," and that's where they end up going to this thing, the plot is so convoluted.
Why the plot is so convoluted for no reason when you could have just been like, LeBron James has to come and help these tunes just like Michael Jordan did.
And they didn't do that. I watched this movie when it came out with Aubrey and I's friend Bryce. Shout out to anime guy Bryce. It is an incredibly boring movie, except for the fact that Daffy Duck is the coach of the team, and Coach Daffy is genuinely hilarious, and I still kind of want a Coach Daffy Funko Pop.
Okay.
Now, Aubrey, you may have noticed in that entire summary, I didn't mention Lola Bunny.
Yeah.
So what's up with her in this movie? She initially leaves the Toon World to pursue her dream of becoming an Amazon warrior inspired by the Wonder Woman universe. When LeBron James and Bugs Bunny are recruiting the Looney Tunes for their basketball team, they find her training with the Amazons. She's initially hesitant to join the Toon Squad as she is focused on completing her warrior trials. However, after LeBron and Bugs convince her that the Toons need her help to win against the Goon Squad, she decides to rejoin the team, and she plays a key role in the Toon Squad's comeback during the game.
The Goon Squad, because they're gooners.
Because they're gooners. That is actually why they did that. They were using that slang even back then.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe the first scene of this is her intro.
I will say I think she's animated really well, and I think that her character design is still really pretty. It's just not overtly sexual like it was in the original.
Yeah, so what me and Aubrey are watching is the first scene that Lola Bunny is in the new Space Jam movie. Basically, part of the plot of this movie is Bugs Bunny and LeBron have to go to all of these different places around the serververse because the tunes are scattered across different WB properties. Like Tweety and Granny are in the Matrix, and that's also a very fun scene. But so like this first scene with Lola, she's in this, DC comic book style, and she's in this like little Amazon warrior outfit, and the animation's so cool. Bugs and LeBron are trying to talk to her as she does her trial, so they're like swinging on axes. If the whole movie looked like that, I don't think the controversy about Lola would have been as bad as it was. I think it's about how she looks during the majority of the movie. So on to the controversy. Director Malcolm D. Lee said he felt caught off guard by how sexualized Lola was in the 1996 movie. He said, Lola was very sexualized, like Betty Boop mixed with Jessica Rabbit. Lola was not politically correct. This is a kid's movie. Why is she in a crop top? It just felt unnecessary, but at the same time, there's a long history of that in cartoons. He also said, this is 2021. It's important to reflect the authenticity of strong, capable female characters.
Okay, based.
So they redesigned her, and you can click on that link. And this is all of the ways that she appears in the movie. The center image is the one that got released that people were mad about, and that's her 3D animation style.
Yeah, I was confused because I thought that all of the characters were 3D for like the entire movie.
No, every time they're in like a different place in the serververse, there's a different animation. That's the coolest part of this movie is that there's so many animation styles. And I think the animation style that looks the worst
Mhm.
genuinely throughout the whole movie is the one they're in the majority of the time, which is this 3D animation style that just frankly looks kind of bad and people were really upset about.
Yeah, like looking at this image, like the 3D image, I think looks bad. I think all the characters would look bad. But the animated versions of her on the top left, the bottom left, and the bottom right are cute. I mean, they look like the same essence, I think, as the 1996 version, but without being so overtly sexualized.
But obviously, because it's the internet, people threw a fit over the new design because wokeness. This is from a Business Insider article. Lola Bunny trended on Thursday with the Twitter given description, people share their feelings about Lola Bunny following newly released images from Space Jam: A New Legacy, which is a very diplomatic way of saying that people were yelling about how they couldn't be horny for a cartoon rabbit. That's an actual quote from Business Insider. Thank you, Palmer Hosh.
Thank you, Palmer Hosh.
Aubrey, I would love for you to read these tweets for me. I made a burner X account to pull these tweets from a TMZ thread about the controversy. So Aubrey, please feel free to read us these tweets. I will read their ads if you will read the tweets for me.
Oh, great. They might as well just call this hashtag woke jam.
At Nyla Robin.
They've taken everything from us.
At Snoopy Hoops.
Strong to that soy boy is no ass, boobs, and looks anorexic.
From 14 Shadow Nexus.
Where are her titties? Where is her ass?
which is from someone else on Twitter whose username I didn't write down. I read a whole Reddit post about this, and this was from a woman because I wanted a woman's perspective. And this was from a woman on Reddit, and she said, yes, Space Jam Lola was sexy. There was nothing wrong with that. She was a bad bitch that took no shit and could play ball. What she needed was a better personality and not so much a visual revamp. Though I did find her to be a lot more anthropomorphic than the other tunes, which was always a bit weird. People also were commenting after this design came out that they needed to do a Sonic, which for people who don't remember, when they first released the design for the Sonic live action, he had some weird beady little eyes, and people threw such a fit that they ended up redesigning the entire character.
My conspiracy is still that they always plan to do that redesign.
Oh, really?
So my conspiracy with the Sonic movie is I think that they originally released an image or even the trailer I think that they knew was going to be upsetting to fans, and then the fan backlash made the movie in headlines, and then they announced the redesign, and that gets all the fans being like, "Oh my god, the creators listen to the fans." They released that redesign like instantaneously.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. I love a conspiracy theory, and I don't think you're wrong.
I think it was all marketing. I also can't emphasize enough how the redesign of Lola Bunny in the new Space Jam looks exactly like her in the animated scenes, but she's just not wearing a crop top and is just a little bit less curvaceous. Her character, I think, still has the exact same essence.
I think she is a more boring character in the new one, which is my big issue. I do agree that her design actually isn't that different. She looks a little shorter. She's not as like tall and sexy, dommy mommy, but it's not that different. So, part of this though is that people were accidentally looking at a porn image of Lola and acting like that's how she was drawn in the 1996 Space Jam. So, Aubrey, if you will take a click at that link. So, these are the images that people were comparing on Twitter. The image on the left is not an image from the original Space Jam, it is a porn image from DeviantArt.
Yeah, you can tell that this is an SFW version of an NSFW piece of fan art.
Even looking at these, the big difference is they made her eyelashes a little less prominent and they made her uniform bigger and they put bicycle
Yeah.
shorts on her.
Yeah, like her overall body proportions, I think, are pretty much identical. Her, like in the porn image, obviously the legs have a lot more detail versus the actual version of
Yeah.
real art. But yeah, this is still to me very much the same character, still, like I said, the same essence.
If I look at like the actual images of her from the original Space Jam, they did do some things to make her look less anthropomorphic and more rabbit like. It's not insanely different. It is different enough that like I do notice a difference, but like she's still got a big ass in the
Yeah.
new one. Her hips are huge.
Yeah, I mean, she's still. I would actually argue, looking at them side by side. I found another image that's the 1996 to the image that's on the right on our screen.
Uh-huh.
And I would actually argue she has a more defined hourglass shape in the newer version. Really, I think the main difference is her eyes are smaller in the newer version.
Yep.
Her cheeks are bigger, which gives it more of that chipmunky bunny kind of vibe.
Yep.
But like I said, other than that, it's the same character.
Yeah. So people were looking at that side by side of the porn image and the actual image from the new movie. And podcaster and conservative radio host Jesse Kelly tweeted, I can almost hear the one on the right scolding me to wear a mask as she drives by in her Subaru.
This is a woke bunny.
She probably is a little gay. She's competing to be an Amazon warrior, but you know, who cares? You can be a lesbian. That's fine.
I mean, one of the trials has to be exploring each other's bodies.
Yeah. A Twitter user at Iggy Made said this image of Lola's original design going around is literally cropped fan art by user Spirito. People are getting pissy thinking furry fan art from 2010 is from a 96 CG live action movie. And what I was surprised by, I guess not surprised, but I was by was there were other really political responses to it. There were other tweets like she became a Democrat, surprised she doesn't have blue hair, a nose ring, and an Antifa tattoo.
I all I want actually is to become the stereotype that conservatives are so deeply afraid of. Like it literally is just I'm afraid someone with dyed hair is going to yell at me.
And I'm so sorry. I am someone with dyed hair who's going to yell at you.
It's just so fucking asinine.
But it's just so funny that, like, they put a full tank top on her, and people on the internet were like, "Well, she might as well be telling me that trans women are women." It's like, what's happening?
Because if a woman is ever not an object purely for sexual desire, what good is she? And that's just part of the woke hive mind to try to create her into something that could have autonomy.
Yeah. So the director, Malcolm D. Lee, did respond to the whole thing. He said, I had no idea that people would be that up in arms about a bunny not having boobs. He said, listen, I understand people don't want things to change, but I think we needed some evolution with her, not by objectifying her, but by making her strong and still feminine. That same girly pop from Reddit, who I referenced earlier, said, Warner Bros. Is patting themselves on the back hard over the redesign to a ludicrous degree. They're in full woke woman empowerment mode, and it's kind of insulting how superficial it is.
I mean, I guess that is what I'm curious about is in the new Space Jam, does Lola Bunny have a bigger presence? Like, is her character actually more developed, or is it all just sort of fluff to be like, our bad, we made her too sexy, and now we're gonna make her less sexy in this new version?
So it's so funny you say that, Aubrey. I'm going to read one more quote from the director and then I will answer that question for you. So there's this notion of can her sexiness and skill coexist? There were women who were upset. Like I mentioned, Lee made this comment that was like, it's 2021. We need to do the authenticity of strong female characters. And so this former pro golfer, Paige Spinarak, said that the redesign implied women couldn't be both sexy and strong. And to that, Malcolm Lee said, and yes, we had all these women who were like, oh, you can't be strong and have big boobs. Sure, you can, but we're talking about a cartoon bunny, not women. Here's the thing. In a vacuum, I'm mostly on Lee's side here. I've seen the movie, and when I gave the plot description, I didn't say anything about Lola Bunny because I don't think her character is more developed in this new movie than she was in the 1996 version. I think she's actually more forgettable in the new movie than she was in the 96 version. She went from her only character trait being that she was hot and also good at basketball to her only character trait being that she's capable, but she has no depth. She still has no depth. There's nothing else there besides she's really athletic, which is fine, but it does bug me that they are doing this whole like Lola's feminist now. She's a strong woman, but they don't actually give you that in the movie. So all to say, I watched this video. There's a guy on YouTube who I like. He's Penguin ZO on YouTube, Moist Critical on Twitch. He made this video called Lola Bunny is Ruined, and it has 2.8 million views. Which is a lot of views. His main points in the video are Lola Bunny is who people think about when they think about hot cartoon characters, and this is me quoting Moist Critical, basically the genesis of all young men's first boners. He also makes the point, why wouldn't you want the furry audience to see your movie? And then his last 2 points, which I tend to agree with, is that it's sort of a pointless redesign. They basically just took her boobs off. But also this isn't censorship and you can still jerk off to the 1996 version. And I tend to agree with that. I don't actually think she's all that more fleshed out in the 2021 version than she was in the 1996 version. So I think the redesign was ultimately sort of pointless because if you're going to make the argument that you're making her more of a strong female character, I would rather you do that by giving her more to do in the movie than by just making her less sexualized. Because then I get to deal with men on the internet being upset and still not actually get a strong female character out of it.
And she's still hot.
She is still hot.
Like, she's still objectively hot.
She's still objectively hot, but it's like the discourse then overshadowed anything else. And I wish they would have, I don't know, I wish they would have just like made her a fuller character. And not redesign or like left her boobs and put her in a regular uniform. I don't know, but it just the whole thing ended up feeling very, very pointless. However, I do ultimately super agree that the original design was way too much for a kids movie, and it was a huge overcorrection from the Honey Bunny and Lola Rabbit designs. And it is ultimately odd to me that Lola Bunny does seem to be like the ultimate object of male attraction when it comes to a cartoon character.
Right. Well, because in the original Space Jam that everyone wants to jork it to, her character is basically just look at me be sexy and I'm good at basketball because why else would I be in this movie if I wasn't good at basketball? And then I'm mean to a man, but then he does something for me, and then I like this man. It's an incredibly hollow kind of character development. And I think that the controversy with the new Space Jam is really fascinating because I really do understand the point of someone being like, well, why would you just make her less hot when the whole point, the problem with her really wasn't that she was hot. You can make an argument that maybe she was too sexualized for a kids movie. That's really neither here or there to me. But rather, the problem with this character is that her main character trait was being attractive. And now, in the newest iteration of it, her main character trait is that she's there.
It's that they need her because she's good at basketball. And, like, that's totally fine, but it just I think also the controversy set it up for people to think that she was going to be a huge also, she's voiced by Zendaya. We were set up to believe she was going to be a huge part of this movie, and then she just wasn't. And so we didn't get a strong female character out of it. We got a neutered version of Lola Bunny who genuinely, the sequence of her with the Amazons, with Wonder Woman, is a beautiful animation sequence. It is the only interesting sequence of her in the entire movie, and I would have rather watched a short film about that than had that character be in Space Jam 2.
Well, right, because her whole point in the 1996 version was like, I'm hot and everyone underestimates me because I'm hot, but I'm actually good at stuff. Whereas in the new version, it sounds like her character is just, I'm good at stuff and everyone acknowledges that I'm good at stuff.
Yeah, there's no conflict. There's no conflict with her. There's no conflict with her at all. Because at least in the first movie, there's like the will they, won't they with her and Bugs. She is such a nothing burger character in the new one.
Do they still have like a romantic relationship in the new one?
What an interesting question. The answer to this is kind of no, kind of maybe, kind of not answered. When I say that she's underdeveloped in this movie, I mean, I think that Lola has less than 30 lines in this movie. Sort of the two moments that indicate anything with her and Bugs is when they first get her and she is like getting on the ship with the rest of the Toons. She like blushes when she looks at Bugs. And then as Bugs dies at the end of the movie, she's like holding him. But that's like really kind of the only times they interact in the movie because she genuinely has like 30 lines in this movie.
Yeah, I think this speaks to like a bigger issue I have with like my issues with how female characters are written in a lot of modern media, where I think people think that to have an empowered female character, it's a female character who doesn't make any mistakes, doesn't do anything wrong, is right all the time, and has no character flaws. And what that creates is just incredibly boring female characters because everyone thinks that if you criticize a female character, that the woke mob is going to come for you for being misogynistic. And it's just so safe. It's just so safe and it's so boring.
Well, and it's also just like, so much of this came from a man. And I do think, as someone who works with a lot of male writers, I do think there is this thing that like male writers' idea of strong female characters tend to be idealized. There's like this idealized sexy woman, and then there's this like idealized sort of asexual strong woman. And I think we tend to overcorrect in that direction. So just like every iteration of Lola Bunny, besides maybe the Looney Tunes show with Kristen Wiig, has been like a massive overcorrection every single time. And that tends to be her legacy.
It makes me so curious why they went in such a different direction for the Cartoon Network show because it's nothing like her character in either of the Space Jams.
And I think that's so useful because then people like, you can be like, oh, they changed her womp womp, but like she's still cute, but she's not I'm sexy. She's just like cute and boy obsessed. So she's kind of ultimately a new character. She's like a new version. In the same way that once Honey Bunny was Bug's cousin and then she was his girlfriend. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he was fucking his cousin, but it might.
I think that it means he was fucking his cousin, actually.
Aubrey, It might be time for us to talk about Bugs Bunny.
We were planning out this episode and we were just talking about sexy bunnies, and McKenna went, Bugs Bunny is hot. And I responded immediately by saying, Bugs Bunny is AMAB non binary and hot in a way that only AMAB non binary people can be. And McKenna went, That's crazy. That's a crazy thing to say.
That's not what I said.
Okay. I remember.
But I might have said that. Let's be honest. I might have said that.
Yeah, I remember skepticism.
Yeah. Oh, I was skeptical. I was absolutely skeptical.
And you've seen the light now.
Well, I would like to welcome everybody to the Is Bugs Bunny non-binary side quest that we will be ending the episode on. So I mentioned at the top of the episode that Looney Tunes historically didn't and doesn't have a ton of female characters. There was this essay from 2015 called The Representation of Women in Gender in Warner Bros. Cartoons, a Performance of Satire. It's written by Eliza Wells. And I just wanted to say that she starts the essay with a quote from Wayne's World, which is, "Did you ever find Bugs Bunny attractive when he put on a dress and played a girl bunny?"
Yes.
Early female characters in the Looney Tunes cartoons were Granny and Witch Hazel, who were both asexual, unattractive, and old, and Penelope Pussycat, who basically existed to get sexually harassed by Pepe Le Pew.
She's so cute. That's actually probably one of my favorite Looney Tunes dynamics. I don't know why it was endeared to me when I was a child. I think because I was an I'm not like other girls kind of type. So I was always like, just give him a chance.
Oh, Aubrey revealing herself as a Pepe Le Pew defender. Womp womp.
My man
The police. That's the sound of the police.
Pepe is just misunderstood. He's a romantic man. He was born in the wrong time.
I'm gonna take all these notes down, adding them to Aubrey's misogyny file.
You wouldn't understand.
They introduced Honey Bunny and also Melissa Duck. And I'll say, Melissa Duck, also too sexualized. She had her titties out a lot. Also, she's named Melissa. All the other Looney Tunes characters have like silly names, and her name is Melissa. Look up Melissa Duck.
It is all sexual fan art.
That's because Melissa Duck was bodacious.
I don't even know which of these is a real screen grab.
Correct.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, this is a real. Let me show you a real. If you scroll here, let me send you a link. There's one of her in a red dress with big old lips that's like,
yeah, that's all I'm only seeing that and then a bunch of fan art of her in that dress.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and one of her in a bikini.
Uh-huh. All to say, interesting legacy with women in the Looney Tunes. However, sort of the main thrust of the argument of this paper is that gender is actually super fluid in the Looney Tunes world, especially for Bugs Bunny. Bugs does a lot of cross-dressing, especially in early Looney Tunes before the introduction of female characters, which, while that can be viewed as a harmful man in dress trope, it also could be gender as performance.
We're all performing drag all the time.
And Bugs is also never really established as a man in early Looney Tunes. He's just sort of assumed to be male until proven otherwise.
Yeah, I never think that the Bugs Bunny in a dress depictions that I can remember. I know obviously they're written to be haha man in dress, but I always think he's feeling it.
And I just mostly wanted to bring this up because Aubrey once said to me that Bugs Bunny is a hot AMAB non-binary person. So when I found this essay, I was like, yeah, holy shit.
Bugs Bunny, he/they, is hot.
He/they is a hot bunny. Most of hot bunnies are hot girls, as I hope I've established throughout these past 2 episodes, but that does not preclude the hotness of a hot male rabbit or a hot non-binary bunny. That's all I gotta say about hot rabbits. Aubrey, I would like for you now to enter your mind palace. And I want you to think back to all of the hot rabbits we have talked about over the past 3 episodes. And I would like for you to tell me who your favorite is and who the hottest is.
Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh and Peter Rabbit. And I will not answer which.
We barely talked about those.
Yes.
I do all of this research. I spend an hour and a half talking about Lola Bunny to get Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh and Peter Rabbit.
Yes.
We're ending there. have a question or a topic that you would like for us to discuss, send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.